Good morning, everyone. I am excited to share with you a pre-recorded version of this presentation given the extenuating circumstances, and I thank you all for being here. I will be discussing the impetus for this presentation with my own graduate studies and how the use of existing collections was well suited to my situation as well as other graduate students. I will then provide a brief overview of the background for the assemblage and the collection before discussing the beneficial research and educational outreach opportunities afforded using this existing collection for my research. So to start off, I wanted to share with you a bit of my own path because I imagine I am not alone in my thoughts and concerns surrounding pursuing graduate education, as many of us here can identify with this either for ourselves or for our students. Coming from working as an archaeological technician in cultural resource management for around 2 years, I decided to return to school and specifically looked for terminal master's programs based on my goals of continuing my training and education for specialization in historical contexts, improving my employment opportunities and potential pay grade or scale, while also maximizing my own financial and time commitments. In my program selection process for my terminal master's programs, some of the pros I identified included the shorter completion time, the diversity of options available, including all online or professional work concurrent programs, and the establishment of a jumping off point for dissertation research should I choose to later pursue a PhD. The cons identified included time pressure of completion within 2 years, which is typically directly linked to the limited funding available for terminal master's programs, as well as this cumulative factor of limited time and limited funding, limiting the scope for our realistic completion of research. With these surrounding conditions for terminal master's research, I have found that using an existing collection provides uniquely ideal opportunities for research, collaboration, and educational outreach for both students and the public. My presentation today uses my own thesis research experiences over the past 1.5 years as a case study in these beneficial opportunities. To put this case study discussion in context, this assemblage comes from a late 19th through mid-20th century site in western Washington, located at the confluence of the North and South Forks of the Stillaguamish River. Indigenous Coast Salish cultures call this place Skabalko in Lushootseed, which means to gather or unite fresh water. With American imperial interests heightening focus on the so-called Western frontier, settlements consisting of immigrants from the eastern United States and beyond expanded rapidly to support this agenda. In the 1890s, Haller City and Arlington were platted within miles of each other in the close vicinity of Skabalko. In 2006, the City of Arlington contracted Northwest Archaeological Associates to conduct a cultural resources assessment for wastewater treatment plant upgrades. The Tiger-Weimer Historic Site was identified, and subsurface survey located a Privy feature which corresponds to the Privy indicated here on the 1905 Sanborn insurance map. In 2008, they returned to complete a data recovery excavation of this Privy as mitigation for the upgrade of the city's wastewater treatment plant. Northwest Archaeological Associates completed an analysis of artifacts, including minimum number of individual glass and ceramic vessels, faunal analysis, and expanded upon historical research that had initially been conducted in 2006 about the general site history. Their research questions generally discuss socioeconomic structure, identity, household economic strategies, gender roles, health and medicine, and the development of sanitation practices on the urbanizing frontier. After completion of their research and reporting for Department of Historical Preservation standards, the assemblage recovered from the Privy was accessioned by the Burke Museum of Natural History and Culture in Seattle, Washington. The archaeological collection staff commonly used objects from this collection in behind-the-scenes tours to showcase exemplary artifacts from the local 19th and 20th century site. Particularly, this was showcased during annual member events in 2008 and 2009, and 2 objects from this Privy assemblage are also now included in the permanent archaeology exhibit, which opened in the new museum in 2008. Now that we have some context for this specific assemblage, we can pivot to how using this existing collection meets goals and conditions of master's research work, as I previously described. One of the primary questions we ask ourselves as researchers is, who does this work benefit? Our goal being to ensure that graduate level research is not only an exercise in self-actualization, but a meaningful contribution to scholarly work, and perhaps most importantly, the communities surrounding the sites that we investigate. My experience has been that researching existing collections provides unique opportunities to gather new kinds of data, update and correct data within and across repositories or catalogs, applying new or different analytical tools, as well as developing connections between multiple kinds of archival and artifact collections. Logistically, research conducted on existing collections maximizes time with artifacts during the short time frame of master's research and allows for a depth of research that may not be possible when artifact excavation, cleaning, and cataloging are required to precede the analysis. One example of the deeper scope of analysis and research possible when working with existing collections is exemplified by a specific object that had only been cursorily identified previously. This button on the right is one of two in the assemblage that have embossed text on the face reading Day's Big Five. By following the trail of breadcrumbs from Western Washington metal detectorist blogs and local newspaper archives, I was able to identify these two buttons as those from locally made overalls specifically marketed to union laborers in the West. The Big Five tradesmen referenced on the button and through the advertising campaign are the 5 quintessential laborers of the Pacific Northwest: loggers, blacksmiths, railroad engineers, carpenters, and miners. Without having the time to fall down this research rabbit hole on a single set of buttons, I would not have gathered this data, which strongly informs my central research focus of identity negotiation on the Western urbanizing frontier. Through genealogical, census, and directory research, I also was able to determine that potentially both a logger and a carpenter would have contributed to this specific household assemblage, which further contextualizes and provides meaning surrounding the consumption of local goods and the targeted trade-based advertisements that we see here. Expanding upon this multi-resource-driven discovery, I want to highlight that in addition to working with existing artifact collections, we almost always incorporate existing collections of archives or other kinds of collections into our research. For my work, I was very fortunate to have access to 2 local volunteer-run, community-sourced organizations. The Stillaguamish Valley Pioneer Museum and the Stillaguamish Valley Genealogical Society are both located in Arlington, Washington, and have compiled numerous photographs, newspapers, unpublished manuscripts written by locals, belongings, and other objects donated by Stillaguamish Valley residents and pioneer descendants. This circa 1891 photograph of the Tiger-Weimer site, here up on the upper left, shows one of the earliest documentations of the site, as well as a prominent advertisement on the front of the Tiger drugstore that says "New home sewing machines for sale here." This image is, as I said, the earliest photo documentation of the site and provides us insight into the multi-use nature of the building, both as a drugstore and a residence, in addition to a school space, as the group of people we see in front here are one of the first classes educated in Haller City and taught by Myrtle Teager, who was married to the Dr. C. Teager of Teager's Drugstore. This photo is archived at the Pioneer Museum and is used in publications by the Genealogical Society. Also, when spending 4 days at the Pioneer Museum doing archival research, I noticed that they actually have a new home sewing machine in their collection, donated by descendants of community members who may very well have purchased such machine from the Teagers directly. The logistics of my research in the Seattle area also meant that I stayed in Seattle during the week, working with artifacts housed at the Burke, and then on weekends I would drive up to Arlington each day for access to these volunteer-run organizations. A research schedule that was born out of convenience and frugality for me ended up actually creating an extremely fortuitous ability to regularly tack back and forth between objects and archives. And while this is not always possible for collections, I highly recommend this structure when it's possible, because with local existing collections, as I had in this situation, it was a really unique opportunity that could rarely be achieved in a field excavation setting. Another wonderful part of working with this collection was being able to participate in the existing programming at the Burke Museum through their public-facing workrooms. While doing research in constant view in the public can sometimes feel a little nerve-wracking, I actually found it was really exciting that as I made interesting discoveries in my data recovery, or data collection, that I was able to share them with museum goers through impromptu displays at the window with whiteboards. And the staff of the Burke were very appreciative that I was helping them out with their educational programming, and I found that it was really great to passively interact and educate the public as I was conducting my research. Another ideal way that I was able to interact with the public while conducting my research was through social media. I posted regular updates on my personal account and was featured twice during my 4-week visit to the Burke on their own Instagram. Social media can be used as a valuable tool for engaging with and educating a broader audience than is usually possible with collections, especially those that are not on exhibit full-time. Collections research can also often feel really isolating, especially in our current social climate, but sharing the progress and insights through social media not only bolstered me as a researcher, but served as a very valuable educational outreach tool. These examples from my own experience have demonstrated the particular value in utilizing existing collections for thesis research especially, as well as the general opportunities for historical archaeological research practices. Working with existing collections means that the time and energy of us as researchers is focused on artifact analysis particularly, rather than a full course of archaeological practice. When working with the limited scope and time frame of graduate level research, that was especially useful for me in my terminal master's program, and it really optimized the research time that I had. Research on existing collections may also require researchers to practice valuable skills in collaboration and outreach outside of a strictly academic setting. By working with multiple collections, repositories, and the public, students are able to strengthen essential skills beyond just the methods of archaeological research. Finally, revisiting collections builds scholarship iteratively, which means we get deeper and deeper as we go, more and more information adds up, and cumulatively we get broader and deeper knowledge. And this means that the value of these collections throughout their lifetime strengthens the connections between the past, present, and future. I would like to thank the Burke Archaeology Collections team, specifically Laura Phillips and Sari Linz, as well as the Stillaguamish Valley Pioneer Museum, the Stillaguamish Valley Genealogical Society, the John Calhoun Smith Memorial Fund, and the Burke Museum Archaeology Collections Research Fellowship Program. If you have any questions or comments you would like to send along, I would welcome any feedback. My email is mcaves@uidaho.edu and is shown here at the bottom of the slide. Thank you so much for your time.